Hello everyone and welcome to another LJTMTG video. I'm here with Trent. I'm Jer, and we're gonna do a quick points change reaction video, give you our takes, tell you what you should be playing now that the format is completely different. Spoiler alert, it's not completely different.
Everything's changed.
Uh, the more things change, the more it stays the same or something.
So true.
All right.
So true.
First things first, the changes. We'll outline the changes and then go through them one by one. So there were three additions to the point list, three cards that went from 0 to 1. The first one is our background image balance. The second one is merchant scroll. And the third one is Nadu winged wisdom. Well, let's get your take on the changes kind of as a whole, Trent.
Sure, yeah. Excuse me. I like these changes personally. We were theorizing what the changes would be this weekend, like between the three of us, Liam, Jer, and myself, and basically we came to a consensus that we thought that these were pretty easy changes to make. Well, sorry, not easy changes to make, but like based on dialogue that's been happening over the course of the last while, as well as I think if you are in tune with what's going on with the format, these are changes that make a lot of sense. And whether or not people wish that there were more changes that happened, that's obviously a different discussion to be had. But for the changes that are happening, like these three make a lot of sense to me. I don't know about you, but I feel like we're on the same page there, that these feel like pretty natural.
I agree. Since February, I posted like the changes I would like to see are balanced Nadu Tameo. And then at some point between February and now, I switched my Tameo point to Merchant Scroll. So like I basically predicted this perfectly is what I'm trying to get at.
He's
So
a time traveler.
yeah, precisely.
He came
All
from
right.
the future.
So let's get more in depth on the changes one by one. Um, let's start with Merchant Scroll.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about Merchant Scroll if I can have the floor, because
Indeed.
I've been playing it a lot. Um, so the reason that this points change makes sense to me, and the reason why I think you want to go from 0 to 1 here is uh, the card is really, really free, but also quite powerful, and it's only really powerful in like two decks. I mean, there are some other decks that play Merchant Scroll, like High Tide.
I was gonna say you're
Yeah,
literally on a podcast with the two premier high tide pilots of the format. So
and I want to give High Tide its fair share of love from my heart. Taking a bullet for Jeskai and Flash Hulk's sins. Um, but I think the thing about Merchant Scroll is like we know the tutors are very good in our format, and Merchant Scroll has this like it only tutors for basically a couple of cards in the format, except outside of High Tide, which is Ancestral Recall and Flash, right? And when we were looking at the format before, like we think that combo's been really strong, and we actually have a video that we can link in the description where we were talking about our power rankings for like the first quarter of the year, and like 6 of the 8 decks I believe that we ranked were combo decks, and then one of them was Jeskai. And I think Merchant Scroll is a really elegant way to like point combo. Sorry, the one of the scariest combo decks, which is Flash Hulk, and also take a little bit of power away from the blue mid range decks. Um, Personally, I've been
specifically the recall decks.
yeah, specifically the recall decks. We like I think there was this general consensus among the community that blue probably needed a point or was close to needing a point. Like it wasn't really a guaranteed thing, but I think the general consensus was like people think blue is maybe a little too good in those mid-range decks, but like what do you hit, right? Like do you hit Spellseeker? Do you point recall more? Like you can't really hit any of the one pointers because they'll just switch to some other one pointer. So I think Merchant Scroll is a pretty elegant way to tax combo a decent amount, which from our perspective, Flash Hulk is one of the best combo decks in the format, and getting to free roll a 2-mana tutor that finds half of your combo is really, really powerful and adds a lot of speed to your deck. Like personally playing Flash Hulk over the course of the last couple months, I can tell you that hands that have Merchant Scroll are so much better than hands that don't, because it's so like having that turn 2 tutor is the difference between winning and losing a lot of games. And so you actually are taking a pretty significant amount of power away from the deck, and it's a deck that doesn't really get to say take away one of its random 1-pointers and just slot Merchant Scroll in. Like your points are pretty tight. Right now, in the iteration I'm playing Flash at 7, Vamp at 2, and then Mystical Tutor at 1. And it's not like you're not going to cut Mystical Tutor, you're not going to cut Vamp, so like now you do actually have to take some power away from your list if you want to play it, and maybe think about playing some other potentially slower tutors or maybe more interaction, which I think is kind of where you want your combo decks to be. Like my personal take on combo decks in the format is, I think if you want to interact with what your opponent's doing, you should have to pay a cost for that, and that cost shouldn't be so low. And as we get into our next card, which I'm going to let you talk about more after you give us your thoughts on Merchant Scroll, I think like that point as well is really good. But yeah, it's hard to describe how powerful Merchant Scroll is in these two decks. Jeskai being a recall deck, like being able to Merchant Scroll to get recall just active in your game regardless of what happens to it, can be really, really powerful, especially in more mid-range grindier matchups. Like if you Merchant Scroll for recall and they discard it, but you continue to fight a fair game and then you get to put recall back on top with your Mystic Sanctuary, like I think that's actually a really important interaction that happens in the format, even if you know that paying 3 total mana for 3 cards isn't actually that broken. Like, we have things like Painful Truths in our format that aren't necessarily that good. But putting recall into more of your games does like lead to win percentage. So I'll let you talk about Merchant Scroll a bit if you want. And I'm sure there's stuff I missed, but I think the card's just like a little too good. And this might be like a card that's indicative of like if we had a half point, then maybe it would be a half point, but like we don't. And I think like it definitely leans towards the 1 point edge, like as opposed to the 0 point.
Right now, yeah. And also just like thinking of not all points are based on power level. Like this is a point that pretty surgically detracts power from two decks, or one deck and one archetype, as you mentioned, Flash Hulk and Recall midrange decks. And I think it's okay if you think those decks are too good to put a point on both of those decks. And this is you said the word elegant, and it's an elegant way to do that. The only other thing I wanted to mention is it's a little bit more versatile in that it can go get Force of Will or something else if that's what you need as well. It is in your deck to get recall, but there are sometimes when like you're like, man, if I had Force, I think I'm just winning this game, and you can like you're enough ahead, you can just go get Force. You don't need to get recall and then
great point.
win the game that way.
Great point. I actually do that all the time in both decks. That's actually a really powerful interaction that I should have touched on, but many times while I've been playing Jeskai and Flash Hulk in the last like 5 months, I've just Merchant Scrolled for Force of Will or Counterspell or some way of interacting with my opponent on the stack because I know I'm going to win.
Exactly.
And all of that coming from your 2-mana tutor is just a little bit much for me, from my perspective.
Unpointed 2-mana tutor.
Also, you said it was an elegant way to... you said that you liked the way that I described it as an elegant way of pointing it, and then I proceeded to just like word vomit. So let's maybe move on to the next card that I would love for us to talk about. And
all right,
yeah,
the next card is Balance, We agreed it's probably the most impactful card being pointed. We'll get into that a bit more in a second, but this is primarily just a card that was in most, if not all, combo decks, or like all in combo decks, just as kind of like a release valve. Combo decks are generally the most tutor dense decks in the format, and so being able to have a card like Balance that you can go tutor for to reset the board, or like get out of a tricky mulligan, or like in the academy decks you can just kind of vomit your hand and balance, and then your opponent just has basically no resources, is just backbreaking. Like, this is a card that is capable of just winning the game by itself functionally, and worst case it's likely removing all the pressure your opponent has against you, including any hate bearer creatures they had in play, which is often something combo decks are really looking to do. Like, one of the hardest things for combo decks to beat is multiple hate bears in play, or a protective creature like Mother of Runes or Benevolent Bodyguard or Sylvan Safekeeper plus a hate bear, and Balance just beats basically all of those. And taking away free Balance, at least making them make a choice to put it in their deck, like they're cutting either a tutor or a fast mana or something like that. Like, the academy decks are talking about cutting Ancient Tomb or Fourth Earlingus or something like that, so they're giving something up if they want to keep Balance, and some are like, no, I'm just gonna keep all my good cards and cut Balance.
Yeah, I think like so combo decks are trying to interact in ways that aren't really like sort of the quote unquote like natural way to play Magic, right? Like, playing to the board, attacking and blocking, having like interactive games where your cards are pitted against your opponent's cards and you see who comes out on top. Combo is like trying to eschew a lot of that away from you if you're on the opposing side, right? So, and that has positives and negatives, right? And like combo being able to have that release valve, like you're saying, for free, like just getting to play a card that just gets them to parity with their opponent for free, it just feels a little too rough from the opponent's perspective. And like there are a couple things that are tough about it too. Like, one, if you're playing against combo and you're playing a deck that isn't necessarily that good against combo but has pressure, like, you're supposed to put your permanents into play and attack them as fast as you can, and you're supposed to like make decisions like, do I want to develop my board, or do I want to hand attack them, or do I want to develop my board or hold up like a shatter or whatever if you're playing. And Balance does a really good job in validating all of those like really interesting like decisions that you made, or the clock that you're putting on your opponent. And so like and they get to do it for free, which is again like the biggest point, right? So you get punished for doing what you're supposed to be doing. So then what? Okay, you hold cards back in your hand because you're playing around Balance, but then you aren't pressuring them as much, so then they naturally get to win the game because they had like more turns to actually set themselves up and do so.
Or they just balance you anyways, and you discard all the cards you were sandbagging. So
yeah, like there's no counterplay. Like, I think that's a big thing from like when it comes to the points list in my philosophy. Like, a large part of the points list for me is like these cards just don't offer a lot of great counterplay, and you can see that with a lot of the cards that are on the points list. Like even long dated pointed cards like True Name Nemesis. Like, the reason that card's still on the list is because there just is not that much counterplay to that card. Like, and there's more counterplay to True Name than there is to Balance, in my opinion. So I think like realistically, if you're a combo deck, I think, like I said before, you should have to choose between whether or not you want to play interaction for your opponent's hate bears, or if you want to go fast, or if you want to be somewhere in between. And those decisions should come with those positives and negatives associated with them. And so I think balance to 1 just makes a lot of sense to me. And we tried it at 0 for a long time, and I, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree with basically everything you said. On to the last card, Nadu Winged Wisdom. Uh, this card sort of was a big boost to creature combo when it got printed in Modern Horizons 3. Most creature-based combo decks have now just started including Nadu in some form or another, either as a plan A or a plan B or a plan C, depending on the deck. I think it's interesting because I don't think anybody thinks creature combo as a macro archetype is too good, but Nadu's kind of an interesting card because it's such a key linchpin to the creature combo decks, but it's also just like a really great value mid-range card as well. Like, it's a 3/4 flyer with an amazing ability for 3 mana, and it doesn't really matter. I'm a big proponent of you should just play Legends anyways and ignore Karakas, but you really don't want to Karakas this thing because giving them a Nadu trigger is terrible. So yeah, I was actually coming down on pointing Nadu as time went on. I think I'm still in favor of it, but it's kind of interesting pointing a card that like hasn't put up a ton of results. Like, some Nadu decks win, but like Nadu hasn't put up the same results that other combo decks or Jeskai decks have been putting up. And it's a pretty popular card to see just because it's in so many different archetypes. So yeah, it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts.
So for Nadu specifically, a large part of like the reason I think this point makes sense is, well, okay, first of all, it is quite powerful, but we don't necessarily point on power level reasons, but there is like some level of like interacting with it just isn't like very favorable or interesting, I don't think. Like and the speed at which you can combo with Nadu is like pretty fast. Like, I think for us, a lot of, or like it historically with creature combo, it takes more to set up. Like, Nadu doesn't require as much setup, based on my experience. And I will say this though, I don't have a lot of experience playing Nadu, so I can't draw on that experience to inform my opinion. But one of the premier Nadu pilots of the format and Counselor Spencer has been a proponent of Nadu to 1 for a while. So there are a couple of theories that I have. My first one is that even though like Nadu is appearing in a lot of lists, like maybe the potential hasn't been realized yet. Because the card has we know that the card has a huge amount of potential to impact like a ton of different formats. Like, it's banned. I think it's banned in both Modern and it's not banned in Legacy, but it was showing up there. And to show up in Legacy, you have to be really, really powerful.
Yeah, like it's a deck that can win Legacy events. So
yeah, which is definitely something we should be looking out for. So that's my first series. Like, we just haven't really seen the full potential of Nadu yet. And then secondly is just like, if Spencer, who like I think is one of the best creature combo players like in Highlander ever, is saying that he feels like this card should be a point because he's free rolling too many other points. I think I take that opinion quite highly, and so, and through our like dialogue and discussion, I can't cover all of the points that Spencer's made. I don't want to put words into his mouth, but based on our dialogue, like Nadu seemed like a pretty reasonable place to put a point, especially since it like honestly doesn't really kill the dedicated Nadu decks. But you now just like you don't get to just free roll it. I think there's a semblance of that as well. Like in the Hoof deck that you and I played at the beginning of the year on the channel, like it was your list and you were just free rolling Nadu because like why wouldn't you? And I don't know if that's necessarily a great experience for our format. I mean, like, cards are going to end up becoming ubiquitous depending on their power level, but and like how they fit into a bunch of different macro archetypes. But I do wish that like I wish we could like combo point Nadu for one, but fair zero Nadu, because I think fair Nadu is actually really cool.
Interesting. I'm the other way. The
Okay.
basis of my support of Nadu to 1 is because like I think it's not a good card to free roll. It's another one of those like MH3 cards that just kind of dumpsters aggressive strategies.
That's
And
a
like
good point.
if this card was like a 0/2, it would have like basically the same combo applications. It dies to a few more removal spells, but like people would still play it basically the same amount. But it would see basically 0 mid-range play. And
Yeah,
because it's
sorry.
got such good stats, it's another card that just like blocks basically everything that costs 2 or less for sure, most things that cost 3 as well. And it's a pain to remove. It's threatening, like your opponent doesn't like it's so easy to combo with it. Your opponent kind of has to respect, even if you don't have a combo, like you don't have any of the encore creatures or Shuko or something, your opponent kind of has to respect that. Like even if you just play a Skull Clamp, like you could just draw 8 cards and or draw 6 cards and put 2 extra lands into play and cast another creature. Like so they kind of have to kill it.
That's a great point. That's like Splinter Twin, like how it used to be in Modern, where like, okay, well, Splinter Twin played a 3rd land, and now I have to respect that they could combo me at basically any time, and this play experience is both not fun and also like really powerful from them because they get to waste a bunch of my mana because I have to respect what it is they're doing, or if I don't respect it, then I might just die, and that play experience is also really terrible. Not to say that that's how you should point things like based on play experience, but like I mean it is part of the card, like, and the fact that it shuts down aggro is a big one too. I totally forgot about that, but yeah, like it's a 3 mana 3/4. Like if I play my
Flyer
like
too, so like even
what
if you're trying to be evasive and play evasive threats, which normally in the format are really good, it's like a flying wall too.
yeah, no, I totally agree. Um, cool.
Yeah. Lastly, we want to talk about some of the decks and archetypes we think either took a bit of a hit or maybe are on the up as a result of this. I think we'll start with the quote unquote losers first because that's less exciting and maybe a bit more obvious. So the number one deck we think that took a hit was Flash Hulk. Flash Hulk played both Merchant Scroll and Balance.
Mm-hmm.
Although interestingly, you mentioned you weren't that high on Balance in Flash Hulk, but most at least I know you played it, but at least most
a lot
of us
of people who've played more Flash Hulk than me like Balance a lot, so
yeah.
I've still been playing it. Personally, I've had very bad experiences playing Balance and Flash Hulk, but you know, I haven't played nearly as many games as other people, so I defer to the community on that one, and that it does feel like if Balance is good in Flash Hulk, this is definitely a significant loss. Balance and Merchant Scroll are really big. Like I can't stress enough how different hands are with Merchant Scroll and Flash Hulk. Like
Well, and also
so powerful.
as you mentioned, the points in Flash Hulk are like pretty tight, so it's hard to find ways to play these cards.
Yeah, definitely.
The next one we have up is Artifact Combo, sort of just broadly, whether that's like Citadel, Paradox Academy, Time Vault, whatever. Just because this deck was the best user of Balance.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking symmetry with artifacts made it more punishing. You're more likely to have your opponent sack lands and discard cards as well as just wrath their board. So it was much closer to just like a win condition in those decks. And those decks, a bunch of them are also pretty tight on points, so we'll also struggle to include it.
Yeah, they're really tight on points. Like there are so many different artifact deck like point spreads, and
yeah.
I mean, maybe it's interesting now because like now you get to say, okay, well, I think this point spread is better because I get to play Balance. So I think there's some like tinkering there, and I don't know about you, but as a player, I enjoy sometimes like if my points go up or down, like trying to figure out like, okay, what's the puzzle? Like, how do I solve this? Like, what's the best point spread?
It'll also just be meta dependent because balance is a card you want if there are a bunch of creature decks and aggressive decks, but not a card you want particularly against controller combo decks. Like, it's not especially good.
Well, and like as we said before, now when you get balanced, they meant it. Like they actually meant it. Like they said, I think that I'm going to need this type of effect to be successful in this like particular metagame. I think that's like way more interesting personally.
Yeah, next up we have recall decks. Losing one of the better ways for them to find an access recall, and as you said, just like introduce recall into the game. It's not super significant. Like if you were playing Jeskai, it's not like what was you, your deck
really
is
good.
dead. Yeah, Jeskai's still really good.
Yeah.
There are lots of other things you can play instead. And the last deck is Nadu. Nadu, obviously eating a point means one of the other points in your deck you're gonna have to cut. But as we mentioned, the points in those decks are really flexible. Like they were playing things like Natural Order, White Plume, Strip Mine. They were playing Moxen, some of them. So like a lot of points not tied up in like necessary cards. So pretty easy to cut one of the like sort of like value, quote unquote value points you had in the deck and carry on doing what you're doing.
Yeah, like you just got to free roll whatever your 10th point was. Yeah, like you said, Strip Mine, Natural Order, White Plume, fourth if you're playing red, right? Like,
sure.
And now you have to actually make like considered decisions, especially when it comes to triple mocks. Because before you could play triple mocks, Urza Saga and Nadu, and I think that point spread is actually pretty legitimate and really fast. So now if someone is playing triple mocks Nadu, like they also really mean it. Like they want to go burr.
Yeah. Now on to some of the decks we think, or archetypes we think probably got a bit better. Time Walk mid-range decks. There's been sort of murmurs that Time Walk is pretty good and people should probably be playing it more, even without like the Seeker Walk combo. Like I've been playing a bunch of Scape Shift, you've been playing a bunch of Scape Shift, and you just win some games because sometimes you just like cast Time Walk and then you regrow it twice and you're on turn 6 and your opponent's on turn 2, and it's pretty hard to lose
so good.
from that point.
So sick.
And also just taking an extra turn with a bunch of these mid-range threats that they've been printing recently is also quite good. Like your opponent will block or not block thinking they're going to get another turn, and then you time walk and put them to the same test again but at a lower life total or worse board. And it's not easier the second time around, let me tell you. So
no, I would implore people to try Time Walk, because I've been thinking about it a lot, and like when I've played Time Walk in the past, outside of like Seeker Walk, and the threats in those decks compared to the threats that we have now, so much worse. And Time Walk gets so much better the farther ahead you are, and like that's goes without saying, but you get farther ahead in games. I find or in a lot of the games that we have, your Time Walk I think can push you really far ahead. Whereas before, like sometimes when in Time Walk mid range, you'd be like, I play my Vendilion Click, I attack you, I Time Walk, and then play like a Mana Elf, hit you for 3 again, go. And like your Time Walk is pretty underwhelming, and in that situation you'd always want recall over it. But like nowadays, I don't know, like you play like a 1-drop, a 2-drop, and you Time Walk and play another 1-drop, like I think your opponent dies in a lot of those situations, right?
The emblems are so good with like Time Walk is so good with the emblems, like getting like if you have like White Plume CZDZ in your deck.
Oh my, yeah.
getting extra initiatives, like getting closer to that final room. Yeah, nuts.
Yeah, Monarch, the whole 9 yards.
And something else people have been clamoring to hear for a long time. we think aggro is going to get better aggressive strategies in general. Balance was easily the best tool combo had to combat these. Like, combo can definitely still race aggro, don't get me wrong. It very doable. Goldfish on the fastest combo decks faster than the fastest aggro decks. But they do lose the race sometimes, and now they don't have access to, or will have to pay for the release valve. So aggro's just place in the metagame, probably slightly better. Also going to run into slightly less free rolled Nadus, which is just also a positive for aggro. You don't need to worry about as many of the stupid birds. So
yeah, and I mean, Jeskai losing power is good too for aggro.
Yeah, once again, minimal changes. Broadly speaking, these changes aren't changing much. It's not like any of the decks we talked about getting worse are now unplayable. It's not like any of the decks we talked about being better are now going to be like S tier 1 from not super playable beforehand, or underexplored maybe. But yeah, overall, I think we're both pretty happy with the changes. It's kind of the minimum I wanted to see, but I think after 9 changes previously, or however many, 7, I'm happy with these changes, and as long as they sort of keep on this update cadence, I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about this update cadence as well, and I want to go back to aggro really quick. Triple Mox still really good, like, I think if you look at these points, Triple Mox has gotten a lot better. Like, there are a lot of games in Jeskai where you lose because you had early aggression, they answered your stuff, and then they recall, and that's like a really big moment in the game. And them having one less avenue to access recall can be pretty important in that matchup, especially if you have a Mox draw, which are like some of the harder draws for Jeskai to deal with. And then, yeah, that release valve just not existing in some lists that you'll be playing against when it comes to combo, or them being slower. Like, cutting Ancient Tomb for balance is a real cost, especially in the combo matchup. Like we said, you know, your aggro deck's probably slower than combo, but like, the more of these types of cards that they have to cut, like the fast mana or the win conditions, like Fourth Aerolingus, etc., like, that matters quite a lot. And it might not show up in all of your games, but there'll definitely be some games where you don't even notice it, but you won because they either didn't have access to balance, or they didn't have access to Fourth Aerolingus, or they didn't draw their Ancient Tomb because it was a balance, etc. So yeah, I think if I'm wanting to test out a couple of decks in the format right now, it's definitely some mid-range Time Walk decks. Scapeshift is really cool. If you haven't played it, you should try it out. It's super fun. So fun. And you get to play a bunch of cards that you just don't really see anywhere else either, which is sick. And then, yeah, I think there's some like double or triple Mox aggro decks that are definitely worth like looking into.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was our points recap. Thanks for tuning in. And as always, we appreciate any comments you have. If you think these changes were not good, or were great, or you have some different opinions than us, let us know in the comments. And if you're enjoying the content, please like and or subscribe.